where I guess, a bit confused is I'm like, how does this world change on a sound money standard?
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, I have to look at my own experiences. Like I did make some early stage investments in 2018, 2019, roughly. And then Bitcoin just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I basically looked at selling as much of everything else I can and reallocating into Bitcoin. And it's like Bitcoin is an idea that's so big that it just kind of gobbles you up. And you're just like, I couldn't not get involved.
Mm-hmm.
But you can look at it from that kind of almost early stage perspective still, in terms of like the growth that's ahead and the total addressable market and all these kind of like different lenses you can apply to an early stage project. But then at the same time, it's like it's replacing a US Treasury. It's like the lowest risk reward that exists. And it's so interesting to me. It's like, well, what's going to happen in the future with ideas? And the ideas are cheap.
Love that.
But like, how do you fund a good idea when the cost of capital is compound annual growth rate 50%?
Yes, amazing question. Yes, love this. So,
I'm all up for VC, right? Like we should be putting money into
100%.
early stage things.
No.
But like, how?
If you denominate it in Bitcoin, so this is a great question.
So I love this too.
I'll try to do my best. So what I just said, if ideas are cheap, and they are cheap because they are abundant, right? Mm-hmm. All the information that ever existed is already out there. And sometimes, you get a little download and you have an idea. But an idea is nothing more than kind of like a combination of lots of different assumptions that you have, right? I always describe it like this, like, okay, I have an idea, which is usually a thing that exists in the future, right? Like it doesn't exist now. So I have an idea for a product or a service that does X, Y, Z for these people that have this problem that I can find in this place, and they're going to pay me this much money, and then this is my profit, something like that. If you ask someone, pitch me your idea, they usually pitch the solution. Not many people actually pitch like, I'm going to build something for XYZ target group that has ABC problem, right? And along the way, I'm going to figure out how to actually mold and shape this solution so it really, really fits them, basically. And so if ideas are really cheap, you have to be super, super rigorous in your validation, right? In the beginning, that 0 to 1 stage, where you basically figure out, okay, is this something that should exist? How right or wrong am I with all my assumptions that make up this idea with regards to what the people that have the problem or the need that I want to service actually want? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I have an idea, but I'm probably wrong. So I need to go out into the world and get information to figure out how wrong or right I am. And based on that information, I have to decide if I should continue or not. But that's not only for the people that I want to service, that's also for me, because I have limited time and energy and attention and motivation that I can point towards a certain idea. And so it's not only to figure out, so it's kind of like this parallel path, right? So you're figuring out the validity or the merit basically of your idea. It's very practical. It's just information, right? I need to get information in the shortest amount of time possible. So how can I learn the most in the shortest amount of time? And then along the way, does that information actually translate to an opportunity that I would want to spend my limited time, energy, and resources on, basically? And eventually you want to get to a point where you can say like, hell yes, right? Like it's either a hell yes or hell no. And so I'd say that process naturally exists or should exist. Like people should be aware of that, because why would you want to spend your limited time, energy, and resources on an idea that just sucks, right? Like why would you want to do that? So that naturally exists. So you have natural kind of like boundaries to be creative and figure shit out in, again, the shortest amount of time possible. Because if it's a idea, if the idea sucks, you want to discard it and move on to a next idea. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Kill ideas quickly was a phrase I used to use.
Yeah. So you have these natural limitations, but what if there's someone that comes along and it gives you 500K in fiat money and it's like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. This is my seed funding and blah, blah, blah. The boundaries disappear, when people start hiring other people to do the research, to do the sales, and all these things to learn, basically. So the money is learning capital to that degree. To, in many cases, because most ideas suck, and that's okay. Just spend way more money and way more time and way more energy on something that could have been killed, respectfully, way earlier. And so the how do you say, like the fleeting money, right? The debasing money kind of dissolves these boundaries. Whereas with Bitcoin, if you introduce Bitcoin, and there's a term I learned recently, which is like the hurdle rate, right? If Bitcoin is your hurdle rate,
great phrase.
If Bitcoin is the hardest thing you can ever own, the most precious thing you could ever own, then you have to be very diligent about what you're spending it on. And so that actually, I would say, enforces the natural boundaries that are already there, that I just explained. And therefore actually force you to be very rigid in doing your kind of like validation and due diligence around an idea, because you really want to be super, super, super certain that this is something that has merit, that should exist, that there's people that have a certain problem or have a certain need that should be serviced, before you actually start using the Bitcoin as capital to execute on the idea.
So cool, isn't it? So basically the access to early stage financing has just got a whole lot harder. But for people that actually try to do it, the incentive is in place such that they will have done probably 10 times more work to figure out it's actually what they want to do before saying it, right?
Yes. So you cannot bullshit anymore, basically. Like what I said just jokingly now, like I've seen many investment pitches. It's always a great story. There's always people that have a problem. All the charts go up and to the right, and the market is huge, and blah, blah, blah. Like that. It's like a beauty pageant to a degree. That's always how I describe the startup competitions and stuff like that, right? Like, who has the best pitch? No, who has the best fucking business opportunity? Like that's what it's
that
about.
Gets forgotten.
And
then it's like, can you pump the next round? Can you bring in a bigger fund that wants a higher price? And then you're actually playing a game such that don't run out of money, but make sure you can get another funding round in at a superior valuation. And you're basically
the subject.
Fixing
you're a
the market
subject in the game. No, you're a subject in the game. You're not a player. So when you start with your idea in your company, you're a player. You want to create something in the world, right? And then
when you become a bit part of it, yes.
Yeah, when you get that funding, of some, early stage VC fund, like there's two things. They need to get fund 2 or 3 or whatever off the ground, right? Like in the next 2, 3, 4 years. So they need some results. And so they're pushing you for growth, right? For example, when this was nice when I realized this. Many people say like, oh, we have this and that amount of users, right? Like we have 100,000 users. But then if you ask them, like, what is a user? They don't really have a definition, right? Is that registrations?
What is that, sign up? So
is that an active user? Yeah, exactly. Like, and what is a active user, right? Like, what do they actually bring you? What did it cost you to actually acquire all these people? Because we can run advertising. We can run advertising campaigns and get like 1 million signups to whatever the startup is that we're building. But that doesn't say anything. So then if you go back to your early stage VC and be like, hey, we got 1 million signups, there's something here. And then that VC goes to, whoever's their funding and say like, hey, we got this company in the portfolio. They have 1 million signups, whatever, and blah, blah. Oh yeah, sure. We'll fund you fund number 3, right? So it's a weird, like that VC is literally a Ponzi scheme in that sense, or a pyramid, one of the two.
They wouldn't like hearing that.
No, I know. But
to some degree that's true though. When you start digging into what Bitcoin actually is and you look at it in comparison to where you've been before, and you start to see misalignment everywhere of incentive, and then you suddenly start to see incentive alignment everywhere. It's kind of putting the hair on the back of my head. It's like, this is the way to go.
Yes.
It's so obvious.
Yeah. And if we want to make the point is not to like hate on VCs or whatever. It's to, I hope inspire people to, if you think about this, and maybe even if you work in finance or VC, kind of like humble yourself and just, when you see the game for what it is, the biggest realization I think you should have is there's, yes, like you said, it's misalignment, but it's also misallocation of finite time and energy of other humans, right? So if you think about, if Bitcoin is the hurdle rate and we are forced to be very diligent with what we are spending our capital on, then that what we are actually spending our capital on is going to be very directional, very substantiated, a great foundation. That doesn't mean that there also should be capital to just fuck around and try stuff and do weird things and be creative like that, play around to discover stuff. But that can only work if you actually designate a certain amount of money to only do that, right? So just be very conscious about where you put the economic energy towards. And I think that is the core of what we're talking about. And I think that Bitcoin brings that if you view Bitcoin as the hurdle rate.